What is up, gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode on the channel. On today's episode, I wanted to talk about the importance of reminders. Continuously reminding yourself of where you stand in your life. Remind yourself that it's okay to feel a specific way at a specific moment in time. To remind yourself that who you are is not all that you will be and that you could always be so much more. To remind yourself that one day, all of these opportunities that you've been given, that you've been granted, well, you may not have the chance to bear those responsibilities or those opportunities. So a reminder in life is always important, but what do we need to remind ourselves of? And why is this a topic that for me personally hits so close to home? I believe that mostly as well as men, we aim for this idea of finishing something, of completion. We always search for completion in all areas of our lives. And this idea of completion is also tied to this idea of release, that if I just work hard enough, if I create hard enough, if I do X, Y, Z, that one day, everything that I feel will come to an end and I'll achieve this idea of completion. And I think that there is an idea within that is deeply rooted to our mortality. We yearn for this idea of completion because one day we may very well come to the end of our lives. And whether you believe in an afterlife or not, we are working towards some sort of finished end. But as we live our lives, there is no completion. There is no the best that you can be. There is no making the most amount of business success. There's no being the best son or being the best whatever it may be. You'll always be working towards something greater. Coming to terms with that is and was a very difficult thing for me because I'm someone who aims for an idea of perfection. And even in this idea of perfection where we expect that I'll put in this time to something, and as soon as I just put in enough hours, as soon as I give it enough grit, enough will, enough whatever, it'll be perfect. And once it's perfect, it'll be done and I never have to look at it again. There is no perfection. There's no perfection in business, there's no perfection in love, there's no perfection in anything. And that is a beautiful thing in and of itself. Because who we are right now is not the finished result of who we could be. So continuously remind yourself of the things that are important to you. For me, I come to terms with this idea of perfection and its non-existence by reminding myself of my values. Even if I'm not the finished version of myself today, I know as long as I have this core set of values where I try to respect others, I try to never get triggered, I try to maintain a level head, I try to be the best that I can be in everything, I try to give everything 100% of my effort, that sometimes when I come up short, I understand that in of itself does not negate everything that I've done. It just means that I'm not there yet. I'm still working towards that version of myself that I want to be, and that's fine. And I may never get there, but every day I have the opportunity to wake up and to get that much more patient, to be that much more understanding, to make that much more money, to love that much better, to be a better son, a better friend, in smaller ways and bigger ways. And sometimes I fall short, sometimes I regress a little bit, but it's all part of that growth and that continuity towards something else. So I remember that. At the same time, I remember that the things that I'm learning, whether you're a student of Stoicism, whether you're religious and you find peace in whatever religion you may follow, whether you are spiritual and you're all about being in one with nature, you may have periods of your life where you're so in tune with all of those things and you feel yourself resonating at a closer energy to the set core values that you want. Then you have other areas, right? Other times that literally come right after that moment in time, where you feel everything is completely shifted and you feel a chaos in your life. Allowing yourself to accept that this natural progression of up and down and reminding yourself that where there's an up, there will always be a down. Where there is light, there will always be darkness. Where there is darkness, there will always be light. And it sounds like the most cliche thing ever, but life is truly in cycles. And as long as you have a guiding light, a light that tells you that no matter what, this is the direction that you're headed. You can take any action. You can make any decision from a centered place, even if you're not feeling quite centered at that time. For me, I know that when I find myself in this zone of feeling anxious, or I find myself in this zone of feeling impatient or feeling that I'm not on the right track, I can review with myself and say, okay, sure, I may have felt that way today, but did I wake up and did I give it my all? Sure, check, amazing. Did I wake up and did I try? Did I genuinely try to be more patient? Sure, check. Did I wake up and did I actually give my all to providing value? Maybe I came up short. Maybe I delivered a client project in a way that wasn't the best that it could be, but did I genuinely try to give that value? And am I willing to learn from where I came up short? Check. So even in a low day, in a day where things did not go out the way and did not pan out the way that they wanted to, by reminding myself of these values, I'm aware and somehow I find myself more grounded in who I wish to be. Also, come back to the things and to the creeds that you read time and time again. Most people, they'll read so many books. They may read 50 books a year, but they read it once, or maybe they half-ass read it. There's one thing about reading, right? You can read something and you can see the words and they can enter your mind. And it's another thing to continuously revisit the words that impact you, the words that soothe your soul, and look at them with a different perspective. There's not one book that I haven't read in multiple phases of my life that I haven't seen in a new light, that has taught me something completely new despite the words being the same on the pages that I've already read before. And it's important to continuously come back to the source materials that you find give you the greatest sense of depth and authenticity in your life. Because it is in those reminders that you're able to see the details of the lessons that you may have learned a year ago or 2 years ago, and you expand on them. And maybe sometimes the lessons you're learning today negate what you've learned before. I find that in my pursuit of who I am, that an identity such as Stoicism, I might have looked at it a little bit different 2 years ago than I do right now. I almost look at it in a softer way now, in a way that's more compassionate, versus before, the Stoicism that I needed was much more harsh, it was much more rough, it was much more cold. That's what I needed back then. So we always paint with our own brush what we want to see, even from the things that we read, let alone the people that we meet and the conversations that we have. And the last thing, have a physical reminder. Not only is it important to remind yourself emotionally, spiritually, mentally, remind yourself physically with books, but it is also important to have reminders of the things that are important to you. Whether it's things that you say, whether it's the serenity prayer that you say every day, whether it's a token that holds something that's near and dear to you, right? For me, it may be a coin that reminds me of my mortality, that reminds me that the words that I say today, they could be my last. And if they were my last, would those be the words that I want to have said the moment before I'm gone? So that subtle reminder of the immediate and the unexpectedness of life, it reminds me to always stay on my toes, but not in an anxious way, but in a way that says, give it your all. Be the best that you can, because you don't know if you have another opportunity to do what you're about to do. So choose your words wisely. Choose your reaction wisely. Understand and be compassionate wisely, because it may be your last chance to do so. Guys, let me know what you thought about this episode. This is an especially important episode for me because I want you to know that there's no end goal, there's no end path. And even as you dig deeper and deeper into who you are as a person, the more you realize that there is truly no end goal. I used to believe that if I just learn enough, if I just read enough, if I just do this enough, that I'll become this elevated version, right? The final version of myself. And I'm realizing quickly that that is not the case. And this isn't to dishearten you, to tell you that all the efforts that you're putting in will not yield results, because beyond every stage of growth comes a new level of understanding. Think about this. Think about the person who has yet to learn the importance of empathy. This person doesn't have to deal with the idea that they need to understand others, but they may suffer in their own way. They may suffer at a lower level way where their lack of empathy is leading to poor relationships. It's leading to the inability to form bonds and connections with their team, with the people that they love in a way that is meaningful. But they don't know that they have this problem, but they have the other problem. Versus the person who becomes empathetic, who is able to start to build these deeper, more meaningful relationships, and then is able to transcend to the next level. But now they have the burden of empathy. And now they have to deal with, how do I maintain this empathy, but also maintain myself of dignity, of respect, of what I need to do, of how I need to assert myself in life. Now, it's another problem, but it's a higher level problem, if that makes sense. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. I talk about all topics: self-development, fashion, stoicism. I try to give you the tools that you need to live a life that is fulfilled, that's successful, that's loving, and ultimately a life that you can look at yourself in the mirror and know that through your ups and downs that you can be proud of who you are and what you're working towards. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. Until next time, stay awesome.